Redditors, who've won a spend a day with so and so celebrity contest. How was it? Didn't win a competition, but I was the only person to turn up to a book signing by my favorite author, Brian Jacques. His books were only starting to be published here, but I had been reading them for years in England. The school that was supposed to attend had to cancel, so I had a whole afternoon talking about all the things that inspired Redwall. I was only 14 at the time, but it really made a huge impact on me. I had drawn him a picture of two of my favorite characters and he was genuinely thrilled with it. Girl I worked with won the opportunity to meet Rihanna backstage before a show. She was one of like 10 people standing in a line as she went from person to person. They were all told before she walked in that she would not be saying anything because her voice needed to be relaxed before going on stage. Rihanna ended up complimenting my friend's dress. I met Chuck Norris in 7th grade. He told me he likes my attitude. I met Arnold Schwarzenegger before he went into politics. I yelled Conan at the top of my lunges and he smiled and yelled back "Crom to heck with you" on a street cross. I won a radio concert to have a semi-private concert with Jason Mraz. I got to request a song for him to play. He was 15 feet away from me sitting on a stool with his guitar. I'm pretty sure I requested "Sleep All Day" or "Too Much Food." Afterwards, if you were a contest winner, you got to meet him, get an autograph and take a picture with him. His song "The Remedy" was written about a friend who was fighting cancer. I asked him how his friend was doing. His face lit up and said he was doing really well and was traveling with them on tour. I also gave him 2 sunflowers because in the Remedy video he puts a sunflower in a soldier's gun. I did this basically in hopes that when I told the story 13 years later, he would remember me and think I was awesome. Not a day with, but spent several hours at a bar with. Was at a bar with 3 friends in Montana. We hit it off with this guy and ended up bullcrapping with him for about 3.5 hours. It was obvious that he had money because he was looking at a multi-million-dollar vacation home, but none of us thought any more about that. Guy was cool, bought all of our drinks, refused letting us buy our own and wouldn't let us buy his drinks. Really cool guy, super chill and unassuming. At the end of the night when the bar was closing, I said, "Hey, by the way, I am first and last name." He responded, "Hey, I am Derek Jeter. I don't follow baseball, but I definitely know that name." I asked him, "You mean the Derek Jeter?" To which he replied, "That would be me." Pretty cool to meet someone famous that way. I really got to see how he is when he is just being himself. Seriously cool guy. Not me, but my cousin. She had terminal cancer and was featured in People magazine when they did a story on a hospice that she was living at. She was 17, living in a hospice, and demanded that she be able to bring her pet chickens with her. So I guess they thought it'd be a good story. Anyways, first thing was that she was wearing an Evanescence t-shirt in the article photo, so Emily called her up and they had a few long phone conversations, which was very nice. Second thing was that the article mentioned that she absolutely adored Johnny Depp. Lo and behold, one of his people saw the article. He called her and invited her entire family to his beach house where they were filming Pirates. He basically gave 6 people an all-expense-paid vacation for a week, showed them around the movie set, introduced them to other celebrities. He had extravagant sit-down dinners with them every night and everyone said he was incredibly humble and generous. She died a few months later, but I still remember her excitement when she told me all about her vacation with Johnny. This isn't a meet and greet but a story of celebratory good doing. In 1998 Elton John and Billy Joel performed in Auckland and my parents went along. Not having much money and scraping together to attend it, they were in the very back row. After they got to the concert, it turned out that Billy Joel had bought the tickets to the front 3 rows and upgraded the back 3 rows. My parents ended up being front row, and when Billy Joel put his guitar pick down on stage, Mum nabbed it and still keeps it in her wallet to this day. Not quite winning, just being in the right place at the right time. I was about 6 or so and my mom was super into WWF. At the time, WrestleMania came to town, and we happened to live a block from where they were working out. I go in, and I have my hopes up, because all I want is to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin. At the time, at least according to my mom, he had his whole feud with The Rock happening. Turns out, my wrestler wasn't there, but The Rock was. My mom was pretty stoked, and she chatted with him. He said she had a cute kid, I glowered at him the entire time because he was my worst enemy, as far as I was concerned. Also met China, who was apparently not all that nice. I barely remember it all. My best friend was working with a French photographer. He was Ray doing her website. He's quite in his own world. He was, one day, working at her place. She told him a friend would come to take some pics. So, this guy came, had his pics taken and spent the whole day with them. They had lunch and this American guy made them pasta while they were working. The whole day, my friend was like, I think I know that guy, but he couldn't figure out who he was. Back home, he talked about it with his wife. She works in the film industry. He told her he thought the American guy was an actor. She took a book she had with all main actors' pictures. My friend had spent a full day and got served homemade spaghetti by George Clooney and he didn't know who he was. I guess the fact he was not shy or impressed by Clooney did help them relate. Ran into John Malkovich at a dive bar in New Orleans called Johnny White's. I realized who he was and the bar was pretty empty, so while I was ordering my drink I looked over at him and asked, has anyone ever told you that you have a startling resemblance to John Malkovich? He slyly smiled and told me that he gets that all the time. I laughed and walked out with my drink in hand. Not a spend a day thing. Actually even better. When I was 9, Devon Sawa came to my house. This was at the pinnacle of his stardom when he was young and hot and all over Teen Beat and Tiger Beat magazines. I had posters of him plastered all over my bedroom and watched Casper and Now and Then probably a million times. My 2 cousins and I were obsessed and in love with Devon Sawa. Turns out my uncle went to high school with him and they were friends. He finds out how obsessed we are and plans to bring him by my house the next time he's in town. And he did. Imagine your biggest celebrity crush when you're only 9 years old coming over to your house. We all screamed like idiots when we saw him and my uncle pull up in a red convertible. He was so nice and just as cute in person. He sat with my uncle and my mom on our patio, drinking beers and just hanging out while we brought out poster after poster for him to sign and had our pictures taken with him. Eventually my mom told us to leave him alone and stop bringing out posters, lol. When he was leaving, we cried and gave him roses and my one cousin said, "Can I keep you?" His famous line from Casper. He was all smiles and hugged us all goodbye and told my mom we were too adorable. Just a genuinely cool dude who was willing to let his buddy he probably hadn't even seen in a while drag him to a modest townhouse out in the suburbs to make a couple kids days while he was probably pretty busy cause his career was going great at the time. I'll never ever forget that. Devon, if you ever see this, you are freaking rad and I still have a wicked crush, lol. My dad sat next to Ray Lewis at one of our school concerts. My dad is 6 feet 5 inches and noticed the guy was tall, but didn't realize it was Ray Lewis. So he made some joke about the lack of leg room, but Ray Lewis did not respond. It wasn't a contest that I won, but in my school we had an anti-bullying group, which one day was getting a visit from Sir Ian McKellen. I wasn't in the group, but me and some friends heard about it and we just wanted to meet the man that played Gandalf. I took my trilogy book of Lotta ready just in case and we hung outside the room he was meeting and hoping to catch him on the way out. The headmaster wasn't happy about us being there and was saying we should go away, but I think Ian McKellen heard us outside and asked what was happening. So when he heard, he allowed us to come in and sit on the floor as he spoke. I was pretty starstruck to say the least. Anyway, as he was finishing he was doing autographs for people. Well, I was nervous but pulled my book out, which he did the sweetest signature in, with a self-drawn picture of Gandalf. Refused to even read that book now. After it had finished, me and my friend hovered downstairs hoping to catch him once more to thank him for letting us come in, and we chanced asking for a picture, which he was happy to do. Has to be the coolest experience with meeting a celebrity so far for me. I ended up vacationing at the same resort as Michael Jordan in 2004, in the Turks and Caicos, and he was doing 1v1s against the dads and his kids were 2v2 on the other courts. Super fun dude to hang around. His kids were a blast and we spent many hours in the arcades and on the basketball courts together. About 3-4 years ago my dad played golf with Jay-Z and his business partner manager in Orlando when we were on vacation. Just the 3 of them. Since my dad is retired, all he does is play golf now and has gotten pretty good. Apparently he caught up to them on the course and instead of having him play through, they asked if he wanted to join them. So my dad joins them and plays the next 14 holes with them. My dad had no idea who Jay-Z was. He just thought they were a couple of nice guys and didn't mind spending his day on the golf course with them. When he got back home he was telling me and my mom about his golf day. The conversation went something like this. Dad, I played golf with some guy named Steve Carter or something. Me. That's nice dad. Dad, wait, number. Sean Carter. He said he was a rapper or something. Me. Wait, what? Googles a picture of Jay-Z and shows my dad. This guy? Dad, yeah, that's him. Me. Jaw hits the floor as dad goes to the refrigerator to make a sandwich. Terry Bradshaw held me when I was 2 weeks old and commented on us having the same amount of hair. He then told my parents this boy's gonna do big things. Mr. Bradshaw was wrong. It wasn't a contest, but interesting anyway. In the early 80s, my mother was an editor at a pretty prestigious newspaper. One of her co-workers said that his cousin was in town and was stopping by. My mom and her co-worker's cousin ended up going out for a casual lunch, not a date. Apparently this co-worker's cousin was Carl Sagan himself. My mother had no idea who this guy was or how important he was. She ate lunch with a guy and never once brought up the universe or any of the usual topics that one would discuss with Carl Sagan. My co-worker later told my mom how impressed and relieved his cousin was that he was able to have a normal lunch without discussing the same old stuff. I somehow won a contest to meet the cast of Spider-Man 3. I think it was on a promotional site for the video game. It wasn't an all-day thing but we were supposed to be able to meet them backstage for a bit, take pictures, etc. I remember sitting down next to a guy and watching him play Spider-Man 3 on PS3. He was complaining about not being able to kill random people on the street to some PR guy from Activision. At one point he turned and looked at me and I realized it was James Franco. I never ever thought I'd be the kind of person who would be starstruck, but it goes a bit beyond that. I completely froze in place and was unable to do or say anything. He may have said hello but it's all a blur. It was a completely involuntary reaction and I'm not sure how long the exchange lasted, but I think he got uncomfortable and turned around. He left pretty shortly after that. Over the years I've learned that I can't see a famous person in real life without shutting down. Even obscure D-list people or reality TV people. I saw some lady from Cervica in a Costco once and I turned into a human statue until she left the aisle. I do wonder if James Franco remembers getting stared into submission by a creepy fat dude in NYC though. Not a whole day, but when I was 15 I got an invitation to spend an hour with my favorite band before a show. I started a small fan site for the band, and the night before the concert I got an email telling me to turn up and X time and place and bring some sort of it. I was babysitting that night and happened to check my email there and almost woke the kid up screaming with excitement. I went the next day and a group of around 6 of us got led to a back room in the venue and soon the band walked in. We got to spend an hour just hanging around talking. They signed a bunch of stuff for us and we all got a photo with them. Afterwards they let us into the main concert area before they opened the door, so we all got to stand right at the front on the barrier. During the show the singer was singing while looking right at me and kept leaning over to grab my hand, passed me his used guitar picks and did pretty much everything he could to make that night super special for me. Every girl in that place wanted to kill me that night as most had a crush on him. My mother also loved the band, so she was at the concert with me and also came backstage. She had whispered into the singer's ear telling him that I had been struggling with depression for years, diagnosed aged 4, and used the band's music to help and thanked him for writing it, so he spent the whole night spoiling me to try and help. It had me on an upper for months afterwards and was pretty much the best thing anyone could have done for me. The band was Stained BTW. Just realized I never mentioned it. I'm 36 now, but in my childhood I had a friend that was born with just one functional lung. He wasn't expected to live to 16, so Make-A-Wish did their thing and he got to spend a day with Bo Jackson. This is at the height of the whole Bo Knows era, so it was pretty cool. He got to tour the Royals locker room, hit balls at batting practice, pretty much everything a kid then could dream of. As time went by, Bo continuously called my friend. Dane was his name, and they spent many more days together. Bo genuinely cared about him and became a family friend. A few years ago Dane died in a freak boating accident at the age of 34. He had received a lung transplant by his 20s and was living as any other healthy person. He had a wife and 2 kids. I have to believe that Bo Jackson's friendship and sincere concern kept my friend alive long enough to get the transplant and live his life as long and full as he could. My fiance's little sister had a make-a-wish this year and she wanted to hang out with Ty Pennington. They said that he was as charismatic as he is on TV and super friendly. I didn't know much about him before, but he's a winner in my book. My friend won a radio contest to meet NSYNC back in 1997. We could spend, as we were told, 5 hours with them. Well, technically spent 4 hours 1/2 watching them talk to some interviewers in the back of the hall where they were in concert that night. Then our turn came. We could not touch them or ask for pictures. My English sucked. Ended up with my name written in 4 different ways on the signed poster I had. Then came the group picture. Again, do not touch them. I mean, this was early 97. They were not that big yet. The worst was Lance's attitude. Diva-ish. Justin had his ramen on. Very snobbish. I was disappointed because they were my first star encounter. Met the Spice Girls just after and they were amazing. They were inaccessible from the start. I'm still a groupie for pop artists and I have met other groups. Every time it was a charm. Some artists are very generous of their time. Then you have the entitled groupies who will ruin a good occasion, like when I met Brian Littrell from the BSB. He felt surrounded and some girls were asking him to perform some kind of joke for the camera and he sarcastically started to act like a circus seal, noises included. Got that on tape. Felt so bad when said girls applauded and screamed of joy while he kept his cool. Another didn't win a contest, but my brother went to school with Donald Faison's son. They were doing their confirmation, I think, and at one point all of the sponsors had to go on this retreat together. I'm a huge Scrubs fan, but I'm trying my best not to fanboy. Turns out Donald is super chill. He's really into photography and I had brought my camera cause the place we were at was in upstate NY, aka nature that my NYC self wasn't used to. He ends up talking to me about it and we legit talked about photography and our opinions on print versus digital for about 2 hours. You have been visited by the super land shark. Comment not today to make sure he doesn't eat you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.